Hey everybody, this is Daniel with Bothersome Truth, and I gotta just brag about this documentary that Ava DuVernay did over on Netflix, the 13th. It was phenomenal. It was so good. It's an hour 40 minutes. She gets into the history of mass incarceration in this country. She talks about the 13th Amendment and how it forbids slavery except in punishment of a crime, and how that loophole's been used to go after poor people, especially people of color, black people. It's amazing. And there's a few things I want to highlight about the documentary because I want you to watch it. I want you to take time out of your busy schedule, and if you care about black people and the issues we deal with, if you care about the government having too much power, if you care about crony capitalism and the government being in bed with big corporations, big business, incarceration, money bail, if you feel like the government's not in our hands anymore and it belongs to the few and the rich and the powerful, this is a documentary for you to watch. If you're against the war on drugs, this is a documentary for you to watch. If you don't support Alec, which I'll talk about in a minute, this is for you to watch. This is for you to watch to see how various individuals and entities take over our government and have taken it and disadvantage black people in the process. Now, I'm not going to talk about the whole documentary because I want you to watch it. And my words cannot do justice to what Ava DuVernay and her team did in that documentary. They did it. It was awesome. But I do want to highlight a few things that really jumped out at me that I think would be interesting to you. Hope you like them. First thing I want to talk about that she really jumped in on from the beginning is the myth of black criminality. Meaning she talked about how if you go back to the 1800s, the 1700s, 1600s, from 1619, the first time that a black slave, African slave, came on this continent, there was this intentional propaganda to paint black people, African slaves, as criminals, especially black men. Now we know black men are not the only group that suffers discrimination at the hands of the powerful, but it's important to really kind of talk about this particular part because black men are disproportionately targeted when it comes to mass incarceration. So she talks and touches on the myth of black criminality and how it was reinforced in propaganda, especially the movie Birth of a Nation, the old one, not the new one. She did a fantastic job with this, and it really sets the stage for why when a black man does something, we consider him a thug. We attach assumptions to him that we don't attach to any other group. Tamir Rice at 12 years old was considered a man, whereas Brock Turner, who rapes a woman, is, oh, we don't want to hurt his future. There's a difference there, and those are different cases, but there's still a comparison there as far as how we look at different races of people. The second thing I want to touch on is the war on drugs. And this is important. Like, I was really impressed with her bringing this up because this has to be discussed. Specifically with the war on drugs, how it has destroyed black communities and how it has fed the school to prison pipeline. It has fed the prison industrial complex. It has fed all that. This system of making all sorts of drugs illegal to attack the anti-communist, the anti-war group and also the black communities. Nixon's advisor admitted this, that the whole point of the war on drugs was to target those who opposed the Vietnam War, who were on the left, and to destroy black communities, and to use crack and heroin to do that. And that was what was done. Drugs were used to destroy those communities, and it was all for a political means. And this is not just me making it up. CNN even reported this years ago. The next one I want to touch on that really got my attention, they talked about Reagan a lot. And they talked about different eras. So they talked about slavery era, they talked about Reconstruction, and then they talked about stuff like under different presidents. So they talked about Reagan, and they really did a good job of this. I like the Reagan part because They talked about how tax cuts were a strategy by one of Reagan's people named Lee Atwater. And if you go online, you'll see the quotes where Lee Atwater is saying that they should transition from a strategy of using the word nigger and attacking based on race to using economics and tax cuts to attack black communities to make sure that they don't get the things that they need, such as education, healthcare, jobs, welfare, those things. And some of y'all heard welfare and went, "Oh, well, see, they don't need that." I'm not talking about people mooching. That's an assumption you made in your mind. What I'm talking about is how Republicans back in Reagan's time admitted on recording, in a recording, they admitted they were using tax cuts to destroy black communities. And we're seeing the same thing now. We talk about failing infrastructure in Detroit and Flint. We talk about education and how it's not getting investments. Teachers are not getting support that they need. All of this is not an accident, folks. This is part of a strategy. Cut taxes, take away things that benefit the people, allow wealthy people to keep their money, which they then put into the stock market. They don't fuel jobs with it. They don't create jobs. That is a huge lie, a lie that Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Republicans keep telling. And they're telling it because their donors and the corporations that fund them want that story told so they can hold on to their money. Like, this is important, and this is backed up in history. You may not like what I'm saying, but you can't debate that it's true and that it's actually out there. I want to touch on Clinton real quick because the documentary did a really good job of highlighting that Clinton took the ideas of Nixon and Reagan and really cemented them into an infrastructure that really hurt black people, as far as like the federal crime bill of 1994, mandatory minimums, which took the power out of neutral judges' hands and placed it into overwhelmingly white prosecutors' hands. The three strikes laws, all of this, and how it created a system where blacks were just shuffled into the criminal justice system, into mass incarceration, and how it disproportionately targeted us. They talked about Alec, which is the American Legislative Exchange Council. This is a group that is connected with corporations where they basically all sit at the table together with basically the same power. And Alec will write these template bills that support, Republican and big corporation interests. And then the lawmakers will take this because they're funded by these big corporations, and they'll just basically put their name, the state name on the bill, and they'll just kick it out. And they were talking about how these bills with Alec, for example, stand your ground, which allowed Trayvon to be killed by George Zimmerman. That was written by Alec. Alec has written a lot of bills that has contributed and driven mass incarceration that's hurt the black communities. And a lot of us have never heard of Alec. ALEC. Look it up. We got to know about these things because they are writing bills to allow more money to be made for private companies when it comes to money bail, when it comes to probation. And they talked about how that's going to be the future battle that we have to fight. It's not enough to fight the battle of mass incarceration. We're going to have to fight the battle of probation and money bail. Luckily, the federal government has already started talking about how they feel it's unconstitutional because you're basically being in jail because you're poor. It's like a debtor's prison in a sense. And it's not constitutional because you're not getting a fair, speedy trial. So I like that she brought that up because that's a battle we're going to have to keep fighting and paying attention to. And let me just pull out one quote that they said that I thought was really good. They said, systems of oppression are durable. That was good. That was important because it shows you that you may fight one system and you may have one victory, but while you're fighting that victory, you have to have people looking to the horizon to say, what's the next thing we're going to have to fight? What's the next means of oppression that will come against people who are poor, black people, Hispanic people, Native American people, gay people, LGBT community, women? What are these things that are coming on the horizon that will take away the rights of those who aren't guaranteed their rights, which are, well-to-do white men. That's the only group. If you look at American history, that's the only group who never had to fight for rights. Wealthy white men. Everyone else, poor white men, Irish, German, African, Asian, Hispanic, Muslim, atheist, women. Every other group has had to fight for their rights. But if you're a wealthy, capitalist, Christian, male, you've been set and covered. That's everything that I want to touch on. I'm not doing a comprehensive review of the documentary because I can't put into words just how amazing that documentary was. I cried, and I'm not a crier because you see all of this. You see the story being told of our oppression in so many different facets and faces and forms. And then you see the deaths of people like Philando Castile and Alton Sterling and Tamir Rice and Rekia Boyd and Sandra Bland and Corin Gaines. And you just hear various deaths being talked about. You see it, and it's jarring, especially as a black man who, I love being black, but I didn't choose to be black. And none of us did, And so we didn't choose how we were born and how we came into this world, yet it's used against us in a systematic way to oppress us, to dehumanize us, to brutalize us, and in many cases, in different cases, to kill us. And so it's moving. It's informative. It's entertaining. It's honest. They had people on different sides of the aisle, and you can hear the different views. It was great. And I just thought I'd highlight a few things that I thought were good from that. I really hope you watch it. I can't wait to hear from you and see what you think about it. Take a minute, take an hour and 40 minutes and watch it. And bring a notepad, a pen and paper with you. I did, because I took like 6 pages of notes. I knew a good number of stuff in there, but I still took notes because I learned new things. And it was just that good. So I can't wait to hear from you, see what you thought about it. This is a conversation, especially on important topics that we try to talk about. But this has been Dane with a Bothersome Truth, and I hope you have a good